On the day I finally passed away, lying in bed with my mind so clouded I could hardly recognize the faces around me. I could still see Mia's face perfectly. As I was about to draw my last breath, I forced a final smile and looked at her. In our years of marriage, I asked, "Did you ever love me, even for a single day?" Seeing her hesitate, I already knew the answer. I glanced at our descendants gathered in the room, then turned back to her for my final words. "If I could do it all over again, I would never love you." With that, I closed my eyes. When I woke up again, I had been reborn. Heaven had given me a second chance, and I decided that in this life, I would not get involved with Mia. But to my surprise, 3 months before the SATs, she suddenly transferred to my class and even specifically requested to sit next to me. I instinctively scooted my chair away, trying to put some distance between us, but she grabbed my collar, a wicked smile on her face. "Julian," she said, "why'd you have to die so fast last time?" I never even got to answer your question. When I came to my senses, I was back in my body 3 months before the SATs. I flexed my young limbs and looked at the students around me, all listening intently to the lecture. This wasn't a dream. Perhaps my intense dying wish had actually made it happen. Since heaven had granted me this opportunity, I would never pursue Mia again. In my previous life, the Miller family's company had run into some trouble, so they proposed a marriage alliance to partner with my family's company. Mia was the renowned genius of our prestigious high school, a top student who later became an internationally acclaimed violinist, while I was a slacker. I barely got into a third-tier college, and after graduation, I followed my family's arrangements, learned the ropes at the family business, and eventually took over from my dad. Because Mia was beautiful and sensible, my dad readily agreed to our marriage, and I was more than happy to go along with it. But Mia had someone she loved back then, a childhood sweetheart, and her family had forcibly broken them up to make her marry me. She was never happy after we got married. No matter how well I treated her or how much I did for her, she never once gave me a smile. That's why on my deathbed, I asked her if she had ever loved me in years. It turned out that years weren't enough to win her heart, and in this life, I wouldn't bother her again. I wouldn't interfere with the business partnership between the Miller and Harrison families. So in a few years, the Miller company would grow to an unexpectedly massive scale, and the Harrisons would profit greatly from it. So the partnership was fine. They just didn't need to sell their daughter to me this time. I needed to focus on studying to make up for my past regrets and use the knowledge I'd accumulated over the next years to fulfill my dad's dream of taking our company's products international. In the time leading up to the SATs, I studied like a man possessed. My classmates were shocked, seeing me as a completely different person. "Julian, you don't go play basketball after class anymore. You don't even go for a smoke in the bathroom. Are you possessed or something?" I just smiled and said, "I've time traveled back from years in the future. Not getting into a top-tier university was my biggest regret, so I'm here to fix it." My desk mate of course thought I was insane. A slacker like me wanting to get into a top university was a pipe dream. I didn't care what others said. After all, I could hardly believe it myself. About 2 weeks after my rebirth, my dad called and told me to come home early after school because we had guests. He also told me to buy a gift a girl would like. I knew the Miller family was coming over and Mia would be there. Last time, thinking we were still in high school, I felt that lipstick and purses were inappropriate, so I went to great lengths to buy several large bags of gifts filled with things like giant stuffed animals and intricate crafts. Mia had merely glanced at them and called them childish, remarking how she couldn't imagine how difficult life would be with someone like me. This time, I still bought several large bags, but they were filled with even more childish things: toy cars, Barbie dolls, remote-controlled race cars, things a little kid would play with. I hauled the bags home and saw the year-old Mia once more. I was still stunned for a moment. She was just as coolly beautiful as I remembered, exuding an air of nobility. Last time, it was this meeting that had me head over heels for her. But this time, the feeling lasted only an instant before I looked away. No matter how beautiful she was, I knew she didn't belong to me, and I wanted no part of her in this life. When my dad saw me return with so many things, he winked at me, then pretended not to know. "Son, it's your first time meeting Mia, and you brought her so many gifts? I've never seen you put this much thought into anything for me." I ignored him, walked into the living room, and casually dropped the bags on the floor. Toys spilled out everywhere, and a wheel even broke off a remote-controlled car. I dusted off my hands and said to the aloof Mia, "My dad told me to get you a gift. I was in a hurry, so I just bought these from a street stall. The quality would have been better if I'd gone to a department store." Seeing the pile of toys meant for a 3-year-old, my dad was so angry he grabbed a spatula to hit me, but I wasn't scared. I was a year-old man in my past life. My dad was barely now. Technically, I was the elder. I plopped down on the sofa, crossed my legs, and my expression shifted. Using the same tone I used to scold my grandson, I said, "You're a grown man. Act like one. What kind of behavior is this?" My dad, along with Mia and her parents, were all stunned. After a moment, my dad laughed awkwardly. "Oh well, my son and I are very close. We're pretty casual when there are no outsiders, so he must see you all as family." Mia's parents smiled at his words, but Mia herself just kept a straight face, her brow furrowed. She probably thought I was still willing to be part of her family this time. This time I had no desire to waste years on someone who didn't love me. I walked up to her and said, "Since you don't like the gifts I bought, I'll just take them back and play with them myself." I started to gather them up, but then she snatched a Barbie doll from my hand, and, for the first time ever, she broke into a smile I had never seen before. "I love it," she said. I was utterly shocked. She smiled at me? This was impossible. This was so bizarre it broke my brain. It was the first time she had smiled at me in the years I'd known her. Was she not Mia? Had someone else taken over her body? Or did she genuinely love this Barbie doll? I couldn't be bothered to think about it. No matter what, I would have no connection with her in this life. I reached out and snatched the Barbie back, my face cold. "Sorry, this Barbie is for me, the rest are yours." They all looked at me bewildered. My dad couldn't help but curse at me for being crazy because my behavior today was so abnormal. I thought this would make Mia angry and we could go our separate ways, never to see each other again. But to my surprise, she held the toys I bought with a smile on her face. Last time I bought her jewelry and bags worth hundreds of thousands, even millions, and she never said an extra word to me. Was her hobby really collecting children's toys? I found her completely incomprehensible. During dinner, my dad and her parents tried their best to set us up, but I remained indifferent. Although she didn't say anything, I knew she was resisting it in her heart. She had a childhood sweetheart a year younger than her. In my past life, I heard she was planning to confess to him after high school graduation. My appearance had torn them apart, so this time I would gladly let them be together. I just hoped to have no more ties with Mia in this life. By the time they were leaving late at night, I hadn't said a single word to her. My dad made me walk them to the door. Suddenly, Mia said she had left her backpack on the sofa. My dad told me to get it for her. Reluctantly, I went back, got her bag, and handed it to her. In a calm voice, she said, "Thank you." She said thank you to me? That was the biggest joke I'd heard in 2 lifetimes. I gave her a cold look, didn't respond, and went back to my room. Behind me, I could hear my dad frantically explaining that I'd been in a bad mood lately and wasn't usually like this, begging them not to let it affect the marriage alliance. If my dad knew I had lived an unhappy life until the day I died, would he still push me to be with someone who didn't love me? The next day, I went to school as usual. Halfway through a class, our homeroom teacher announced a new student. When the student walked in, I was dumbfounded. It was Mia. The teacher gave a brief introduction and wanted to seat Mia in the front row. Her grades at her previous prestigious school were top-notch. Coming to our public high school, it was no exaggeration to say she'd be number 1 in the entire school. Mia was beautiful with a fresh and stylish look, and all the boys in the class were eager, trying to get her to sit with them. But a glare from the teacher shut them up. The teacher arranged for Mia to sit next to the class president, whose previous desk mate had dropped out due to a family issue, leaving the seat empty. But Mia shook her head and walked straight towards me. She extended her hand and said politely, "We meet again. Can I sit next to you?" I froze. She was talking to me? Before I could process it, Mia asked again, "Julian, can I sit next to you?" The teacher came over and quickly told her that I was at the bottom of the class and she shouldn't sit with me. She should sit with the class president, who was the top student in the school, so they could help each other study. I wasn't offended, it was the truth. In high school, I wasn't a bad student, but I did skip class occasionally to go to the internet cafe or play basketball. I could single-handedly drag our class's average score down by a few points. Since I didn't cause any real trouble, the teacher usually turned a blind eye. Mia declined the teacher's offer with a smile. Thank you for your kindness, teacher, but I'll sit with Julian. I know him. You know him? The teacher frowned, then looked at me, warning me sternly not to distract her from her studies. Mia's grades were good enough to aim for the state's top scorer. In our past life, Mia wasn't the top scorer, but she was in the top 3. The reason she slipped was because she was distraught after learning about the arranged marriage with my family, which meant being separated from her childhood sweetheart. That's why the teacher treated her like a treasure. If Mia became the state's top scorer, the teacher's career would skyrocket and her prestige at the school would soar. But none of that mattered to me. This life, I just wanted to get into a good college, study finance, and then use the foundation from my years of experience to take my family's business to the next level. Thinking of this, my expression turned cold. I put my hand over the empty seat next to me. I'm used to sitting alone. I don't want anyone next to me. Besides, Mia, we don't know each other. We just met once last night. You should find another seat so I don't affect your studies. The classroom went silent. No one expected me to reject a top student, a beauty of her caliber. Mia looked stunned for a moment, but she quickly reverted to the arrogant, domineering look I had known for years. She slammed her backpack on the desk, pushed my hand away, and sat down. This seat doesn't belong to you. I'll sit where I want. I had faced that expression for 5 decades, and seeing it now made me sick to my stomach. I didn't know how I had endured it for so long. I slammed my book on the desk, startling her. Fine, sit wherever you want, it's not my business. I packed my bag, grabbed my things, and moved to the empty seat next to the trash cans. It smelled a bit from the garbage that was always piled there, and the seat was used for storing miscellaneous items. I pushed the junk aside, put my backpack down, picked up a basketball from the floor, and gave a nod to my slacker friends. They understood immediately and followed me out to play basketball. In the classroom, I could hear the teacher's angry shouts about one bad apple spoiling the bunch, but I tuned it out. I wasn't corrupting her good student. The guys I hung out with were already spoiled. They didn't need my help. Who said underachievers were bad students, anyway? In the future, they all did pretty well for themselves. The one who did the worst still managed to buy a house in New York. We might not have been good at school, but that didn't define our character or abilities. Our minds were just elsewhere. I skipped the rest of the morning classes and played basketball with them. After the last game at noon, I was about to buy a cold drink when a figure walked over and handed me a bottle of water. Here, it's not cold. It's better not to drink ice-cold water right after exercising. My friends all gave me mischievous looks and snickered. Julian, didn't know you had this much charm. We're so jealous. Yeah, and it's not even cold water. How thoughtful. I shot them a death glare. Shut up, or next time I'll dunk on your heads. I was 6 feet tall and on the basketball team, so dunking was easy. Then I looked at Mia, my expression turning cold again. No thanks, I prefer cold drinks. Mia, even though our families have a business partnership, let's forget about the marriage my dad mentioned. I know you have a childhood sweetheart you're very close to and you like him a lot, and I'm not interested in you, so there's no need for us to know each other. I'll talk to my dad. It won't affect the business deal between our families. This is better for both of us. I handed the water back to her, picked up my basketball, and walked away. It was better to make a clean break now than to get entangled again and end up with the same miserable fate as last time. The school wasn't far from my house, less than a minute bus ride, so I usually went home for lunch. As I was about to get on the bus at the stop, Mia rushed over, her face pale with anger, and grabbed me. I knew she was mad because I had just rejected her water. That's how she was in our last life, from our wedding day until I died at. If I ever did anything that went against her wishes or showed the slightest bit of refusal, she would immediately get angry. But in this life, she was no longer my wife, no longer the person I loved. I wouldn't spoil her anymore. I was about to shake her off, but her grip suddenly tightened. She pinned me against the bus stop sign, her hands on my shoulders, and said in a resentful tone, "Julian, don't think you're the only one who got reborn. If you keep treating me like this, you'd better believe I'll tell your dad you're bullying your future wife." My mind went blank, spinning furiously. It took a long moment for me to process it. Mia was reborn too? Seeing me stand there stunned, Mia continued, "Julian, I'm your wife. We were married for years, and you couldn't even bring yourself to raise your voice at me. But this time, count how many times you've yelled at me just since yesterday." Seeing the tears welling up in her eyes, her expression full of grievance. I frowned. She really was reborn. But from our first meeting yesterday to all her actions today, she was nothing like the Mia from our past life. It was as if someone else had taken over her body. The Mia I knew was a business queen when she was young and the matriarch of the family when she was old, known as the formidable Mrs. Miller. Her influence in the outside world was far greater than mine. She would never show such vulnerability in front of me, not even if she was suffering. Unable to figure it out, I decided not to dwell on it. Since we were both reborn, we should just make up for our own regrets. Her relationship with her childhood sweetheart was broken up, and she was forced by her family to marry me, leading to a lifetime of unhappiness. As for me, I married a woman who didn't love me. My dad died from overworking himself for the company, and my own was not just dying with my eyes open, but also with the deep regret of not fulfilling my dad's wish to take our company's products global. I looked at Mia seriously. Mia, since you're reborn too, that's even better. This life, I won't get in the way of you and your childhood sweetheart, and you don't need to get close to me just for our family's partnership. You lived in my house for so many years last time. You know my dad and I aren't like that. Besides, you were a business queen in our past life. With the knowledge you have, you can be just as successful this time without my family's help. As I spoke, I took a deep breath. I had loved this woman for years, and letting go was genuinely painful. But after the despair I felt before dying, I couldn't possibly love her again. I had learned a valuable lesson. Instead of chasing someone who doesn't love you, why not wait for someone whose eyes are filled with only you? At least their world would be full of love for you. Now I was willing to give my all to someone who loved me, but I would never again love someone who didn't. Goodbye, Mia. I turned to leave, but just then a guy on a flashy, souped-up scooter pulled up in front of us. The rider took off his sunglasses and grinned at Mia. Hey, Mia, I'm here to pick you up. Why do you have to transfer schools? Now I have to ride an extra half hour every day to get you. I recognized this kid. It was Mia's childhood sweetheart, Leo. His family had started in electronics manufacturing, but they had lost a lot of money later, and the factory was just barely staying afloat. Still, they were much better off than the average family. Mia's dad was an initial partner in the factory, but had later sold his shares. Naturally, Mia and Leo grew up together. Because his dad's business was struggling, he was neglected and started hanging out with some local troublemakers, becoming a wannabe biker kid. But he was always good to Mia, never dragging her down with him. Perhaps that's why Mia was so fixated on him. Even after he became a delinquent, he never wanted to corrupt her. At that moment, Leo and I didn't know each other, and I had no desire to. I shot him a look and turned to leave. Behind me, I heard Mia stomp her foot in frustration. Julian, you jerk. At the crosswalk waiting for the light, I glanced back instinctively and saw Mia get on the back of Leo's scooter. I felt no more lingering attachment. She still chose her childhood sweetheart's ride. I looked up at the midday sun, so bright it stung my eyes and made tears fall. So much for love growing over time, for weathering storms together. It was all bullshit. I had loved her with all my heart for years, and now that we were reborn, those years of affection couldn't compete with a childhood sweetheart. Back home, I asked for a few days off from school, not wanting to see her. My dad was angry but couldn't win against me. Since my mom died young, he had always ed on me, his only son, and usually let me have my way. After a few days, I told my dad I wanted to transfer schools. He looked at me in shock. The SATs are just around the corner. What are you talking about transferring? And your fiancée specifically transferred from a top school to be in your class. What's she going to do if you transfer now? I waved my hand impatiently. When did I agree to that, Dad? I told you I don't like her, and she has someone she likes, and it's not me. You can't force this. If you push me again, I'll jump from this third-floor balcony to go find Mom. Our villa was only 3 stories, but it was over feet high. A headfirst fall would surely mean a visit from the Grim Reaper. Threatening him with my mom always worked. This time was no different. I looked a lot like my mom, and my dad often looked at her photos in his room and cried secretly. If he lost me, he'd probably lose all hope in life. He had to give in. Okay, calm down. I'll start looking for a school for you. Only then did I smile at him. That's my good old dad. Don't worry, once I transfer, your son will get into a top university, study finance, and come back to help you build the business. Mom's spirit in heaven will watch over us and bring us prosperity. My dad was so moved he hugged me and cried for a long time. But the next day he sold me out. Mia showed up at our house. She pushed open my bedroom door while I was still asleep. I grudgingly opened my eyes to see her expertly walk to the window and yank open the curtains. Sunlight flooded in, blinding me. I said angrily, "Mia, are you crazy? This is my house. What are you doing barging into my room?" Mia crossed her arms and said matter-of-factly, "Your house? Your room? I lived here for years. This is my house and my room too." She used the same tone as in our past life. After we got married, we lived in this house, and my room naturally became our marital bedroom. She opened my closet and took out my usual clothes and underwear, then ripped the covers off me. I slept naked, so my body was completely exposed. I quickly covered myself with my clothes. "Mia, are you sick?" Mia looked at my naked body, stroked her chin, and smiled. "So you had this habit of sleeping naked even back then?" I thought. Get out, I yelled. "I'm not leaving, so what? I kept you in line for years. You think you can escape my grasp just because we're reborn?" Mia looked at me with a smile, which only fueled my anger. Not long after we got married in our past life, I knew she didn't like me and had no feelings for me. I suggested a divorce, but she refused, using a supposed pregnancy as an excuse. She said we should just make do with it for the rest of our lives. Now that heaven had given her a chance to not be with me, why was she still clinging to me? "Mia, this will only make me despise you. It will only make me slowly hate you." She froze at my words. I ignored her and got dressed. After I was done, I opened the door to leave, but Mia hugged me from behind. "Julian, I'm sorry. The question you asked in our last life, I'll answer it for you in this one." I didn't let her finish. I pried her hands off me. "You don't have to say it. Before I died, I already knew the answer. I loved you for years, and I can't love you anymore. Please let me go. In this life, let's just be the most familiar strangers, okay? We're both still young, only. Slowly you'll forget about me, the person you don't love. You had regrets in our last life, and so did I. Can't we just spend this life making up for our own regrets?" Mia's eyes were red with tears as she shook her head frantically. "No, you're my husband. Can you really let go of years of feelings?" I swallowed bitterly. To say I wasn't reluctant at all would be a lie, but I didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. "I can't." Mia wiped away a tear, her eyes becoming resolute. "I know you don't believe me. You were good to me for years in our last life. This time, let me be good to you for years." No matter what I said, she wouldn't budge. But I couldn't believe her. Now that we were reborn, how could she not go find her beloved childhood sweetheart, Leo? When my dad saw Mia and me coming downstairs together, his face lit up. Come, son, daughter-in-law, I made you breakfast." I shot my dad a fierce glare, grabbed a bun, and stormed out. Mia grabbed a bun and followed me. I ran, she ran. I stopped, she stopped. It was driving me crazy. I never realized how annoying she could be. In our past life, for a full 2 weeks, she followed me everywhere. When I played basketball, she sat in the sun waiting for me. When I went to the internet cafe, she got a computer next to me and watched movies. She even waited outside the bathroom for me. The whole school was buzzing. No one could understand why a super genius, the top student in the school, would constantly trail after a slacker like me. There were even rumors that I was a rich kid and Mia was trying to latch onto me. Mia ignored all of it and just kept following me every day. Then one day, Mia didn't come to school. Without her chattering beside me, it was quite peaceful. She didn't show up even by the end of the day. It was the last Friday of the month, so we had a 2-day weekend. With the SATs approaching, a few of my close friends from other classes invited me out for a meal since we'd all be heading off to different colleges soon and wouldn't have many chances to get together. With Mia not around, I readily agreed and went with them to a food stall. It was cheap with large portions, a favorite spot for students. By the time we finished eating, it was o'clock. We were standing by the road hailing a cab when a buddy of mine tapped my shoulder and pointed towards a hotel entrance. "Julian, look quick. Isn't that Mia, the girl who's been chasing you for the past 2 weeks?" I followed his finger and saw Mia and Leo walking out of the hotel, laughing and talking. For some reason, I felt a sharp pain in my heart like a needle prick. Mia's behavior had changed so much recently. She had been incredibly good to me, making me wonder if in our years together she had actually loved me. But it seemed I was overthinking things. Just then Mia saw me. Her face froze, and she quickly ran towards me with Leo following behind. I looked at her with a cold smile. Not even out of high school yet, and you're already this eager, stringing me along while you're getting a room with your childhood sweetheart? If I'm not mistaken, he's not even yet, right? Mia wasn't. Leo was a year younger at this age. He didn't have a driver's license, was riding a souped-up scooter around town like a delinquent, and now he was getting a hotel room with Mia. He couldn't be any good. Seeing my icy expression, Mia quickly tried to explain. Julian, listen to me. Mia, can you be any more hypocritical? I already told you. Since heaven gave you a second chance, you should be with your childhood sweetheart. Why do you have to keep pestering me? The taxi pulled up right then. I flagged it down, let out a cold snort, and got in, telling the driver to go quickly. In the car, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. I had loved Mia for years after all. Seeing her come out of a hotel with another man, even though it was hard to accept, what could I do? I had wanted to stay away from her, so why did we keep getting tangled up like this? When I got home, my dad greeted me and asked why Mia hadn't come back with me. For the past 2 weeks, Mia had been staying at our house, going to and from school with me. I let out a long sigh and told my dad, I need to go away for a while. I'll be back for the SATs. The tone of my voice and the look on my face said it all, so my dad didn't press further. He nodded, but didn't offer to buy me a plane ticket, because knowing him, if Mia asked, he would definitely tell her where I went. I bought a ticket to a coastal city myself. My dad had told me that my mom's only wish before she died was to see the ocean once. In my past life, I honored my dad's regret by scattering both their ashes into the sea. This time, I wouldn't let my dad die so young, so I had to take my mom there myself. I took my mom's urn and flew out that night. I traveled with her urn through all the coastal cities, finally arriving at the city she had longed for, Los Angeles. My mom was from here and had moved far away for love to marry my dad. My dad was incredibly lucky to have married her. Many of the cosmetics from the Harrison family's company were related to my mom, which was why my dad had always wanted our products to go global. At dusk, I sat on the beach with my mom's urn, watching the sunset. Not far from me, on a bamboo chair, sat a mother and son. The boy looked about, apparently heartbroken over a teenage romance. He was crying to his mother, Mom, why doesn't the girl I like me back? Is there really a girl in this world who will like me? His mother stroked his head and smiled. Silly boy, the first time I saw you, I was a girl in her ass. Her words struck a chord in me, and tears started streaming down my face. If my mom knew I had suffered for a lifetime loving a woman who didn't love me back for years, she would be heartbroken. I couldn't hold it in anymore, tears and snot mixing together. Mom, what did I do wrong? I loved her for years. Is her heart really made of stone? Am I really not worthy of love? Mom, I miss you. I hugged her urn, my tears dripping onto it. Suddenly, I heard another crying voice beside me, and another hand joined mine on the urn. Mom, don't worry. I'll take good care of Julian in this life, I swear. I turned my head and saw it was Mia. She was clutching my mom's urn, crying her eyes out. I instinctively started to get up, but she threw her arms around me, sobbing. Julian, give me a chance, please, just listen to me. After I'm done, if you still want to leave me, I promise I'll never bother you again. I didn't say anything, just held my mom's urn and looked at the setting sun on the horizon. Mia knew I was giving her a chance. She quickly wiped her tears and said with red eyes, Julian, I know you've always thought I liked Leo in our last life and in this one, but you're wrong, completely and utterly wrong. I never said I liked Leo. I don't know who you heard that from. Leo and I are childhood sweethearts. We grew up together, that's true, but who says childhood sweethearts have to be in love? In our last life, I didn't like you at first because I didn't want to be a tool in our father's business alliance. That's why I was always cold to you. But later, after I got pregnant, didn't you notice I started being nicer to you? When you asked for a divorce, I didn't agree. I have my pride, and I'm not good with words. Couldn't you see past that? The reason I said those things was because I was slowly falling in love with you. In our past life, the pressure from our 2 companies was suffocating. I had to constantly find time to travel abroad for violin performances. I was so tired. I knew you were good to me, but every time I came home exhausted, all I wanted to do was lie down and rest. And I really don't like all those designer bags and jewelry. Didn't you notice that the ring and bracelet I always wore were the ones you bought me the first time we went shopping together? Her words made me freeze. Even though our families were wealthy, she never wore the expensive jewelry I bought her, always sticking to the cheap set I bought from a street stall on our first date. Seeing my stunned expression, she continued, "After decades of being together, even an iceberg would melt, let alone with how good you were to me. When you asked me on your deathbed if I ever loved you, I hesitated, but that hesitation wasn't because I didn't love you. I'm not good at expressing myself. I never have been. Even when I got old, I was still stubborn. I was trying to figure out how to put it into words, but then, as she spoke, Mia started crying again, lightly punching my chest. Why did you have to die so fast? How could you die without my permission? I hadn't even said it yet, and you were gone. I wanted to tell you that I love you. I really, really love you. I, Mia Miller, love you, Julian Harrison. The day you died, I cried all night. I cried myself to sleep, and when I woke up, I was reborn. This time, I wasn't going to wait for you to find me. I was going to find you. But you jerk, you just yelled at me and were so cold to me. It was only after that basketball game that I realized you had been reborn too. I know you were tired in our last life because of me, but wasn't I tired too? I gave you 2 sons and 2 daughters, and I helped manage the Miller Company at the same time. Couldn't you have tried to understand me? She buried her face in my chest, crying like her heart would break. Listening to her, I started to reflect on our past life. Although she was always lukewarm towards me, she was a very devoted wife and mother. When the Miller family became a major player, she didn't forget to pull the Harrison family up with them. Besides not being affectionate with me, she was perfect in every other way. I sighed, my hand patting her back to soothe her. After a while she calmed down and looked up at me. What happened at the hotel wasn't what you think. Leo's grandparents came from out of town and their house was too small, so I was helping them get a hotel room. Leo was just with me, and Leo and I have only ever been friends. We grew up together, but there was never any romance between us. He just sees me as an older sister. If you don't believe me, we can go back right now. All my childhood friends and my parents know this. In my past life, I had heard from others that her parents had broken them up to make her marry me, but I never bothered to investigate or ask. It had been a major source of resentment for me. Seeing my hesitation, Mia took out her phone and made a call, yelling into it, "Get your butt over here right now." Leo came running over from behind a nearby trash can. Mia. She hugged my arm, declaring her ownership, call him brother-in-law. Leo seemed a bit scared of Mia and quickly mumbled, brother-in-law. Then Leo explained everything. His parents barely paid attention to him. If it weren't for Mia, he wouldn't just be a wannabe biker kid, he'd be a street thug. And Leo had someone he liked, the daughter of the owner of a karaoke bar he frequented. They were the same age and planned to get married when they were old enough. It all clicked. In our past life, when Leo got married, Mia had asked me to go with her. I had been sulking and refused to go. The bride was that karaoke bar owner's daughter. He had liked that girl all along. The girl's mother initially disapproved of her daughter dating a delinquent like Leo, so she had tried to keep them apart. That's why Leo went back to school and managed to get into a decent state college, which finally won the mother's approval. After clearing everything up, the weight in my chest seemed to lift. The sun had finally set. Mia looked at me very seriously. This life, I'm not going to play the violin. I just want to fulfill our dad's wish and take our mom's cosmetics to the world. Julian, can you give me that chance? My mood lifted. I stood up, holding my mom's urn, and started walking towards the hotel. Seeing that Mia wasn't following, I looked back at her standing there watching me and called out, "Come on, let's go back to the room. It gets cold by the sea at night. I don't want you to catch a cold." A huge smile spread across Mia's face. She ran over, linked her arm with mine, and rested her head on my shoulder. Just then Leo trotted up. Mia, brother-in-law, my ID isn't old enough to get a room. What am I supposed to do? Mia pointed to a spot in the distance with a playful grin. There's a bridge over there. You can crash under for the night. Tonight is a very important night for your brother-in-law and me. I can't worry about you. With that, Mia eagerly pulled me towards the hotel. A few months later, I smiled as I looked at the 2 acceptance letters in my hand. I didn't get into a top-tier university, just a decent state school. With only 3 months to study, even a reborn person couldn't work miracles, and that was with Mia's help in the final stretch. Otherwise, I would have ended up at a second-rate college at best. As for Mia, with our sweet romance in full swing, she was in a great mood and excellent form, becoming the top scorer in our city. But she didn't go to one of the top universities in the country. She chose to go to the same one as me. Mia leaned in and gave me a kiss. This life, she smiled. I'll give you 2 more kids. How about that? I nodded. Okay. I had loved her for years. What was another 50?